BLA the other day, yesterday, with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, who do you want for running president? I mentioned, I think you'd be good at the job. Not this year, we know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state. I disagreed, but no, this is a progressive African-American owned station, and I'm sure they like you, but he doesn't think you can win.
Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear they're unable to respond effectively and responsibly during calamity. Whether it's sheer incompetence or outright malevolence, the reality is stark. California's in a state of turmoil, and I asked my fellow Angelenos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office? How much more of their destructive decision-making masquerading as leadership are we going to tolerate?
Bill Maher has a soft spot, as we all know, to supporting Gavin Newsom. But that hasn't stopped him from accusing the California governor of destroying the Golden State. Ask any Democrat running for the 2028 Democratic National Committee presidency, and Gavin's name immediately comes to mind. But his record run in California, he didn't hold back on introducing one of his favorite liberal golden boys because Maher's own backyard is a complete disaster, and it drives Maher crazy. If you're in the mood for some unadulterated political fervor, hit the subscribe button and let's get started.
New law in this, I think we have way too many regulations and laws, as we've talked about, and this one, I think, says if you're a department store with over 500 employees, you have to have a gender-neutral toy department. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I get it.
So do you think that's silly? Do you think that's a silly thing? That we're too much government there?
Look, that's an interesting one because the department stores came to us supporting that, and they're the ones making a case for that. They're making us. They're already moving in that direction.
Wanted you to make a law about them?
Well, but they supported the legislation. It wasn't legislation that was enacted, that was initiated from my office, but it was legislation that came up with interesting support from the industry itself.
Bill wasted no time in getting right to the point. California's red tape under Gavin Newsom, not only is he frustrated, but he is incensed that the state has devolved into a bureaucratic nightmare, so enmeshed in inefficiency and regulations that it is practically impossible to achieve anything significant. He believes that the state is being choked to death by performative politics and endless paperwork, as evidenced by last year's wildfires. Look at the government's lethargic, poorly handled, and almost careless response to the ongoing ICE-related riots that are erupting throughout California. There is no accountability and mayhem in the streets. At first, several people sided with the rioters and urged Trump to take him into custody.
10 years. The fear, the horror. The hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy. You know, I don't give a damn. But I care about my community. I care about this community. The hell are they doing? These guys need to grow up. They need to stop. And we need to push back. And I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is exhausting. So, Tom, arrest me. Let's go.
However, Gavin Newsom finally gave in after increasing pressure on social media and growing criticism from both sides of the aisle. He apologized publicly, retreated, and attempted to save face by threatening the rioters with legal repercussions and warning that multiple arrests were imminent. But for many, it was too little, too late. The damage had already been done, and Nwomi's delayed response only served to further cement the perception of weak leadership. His abrupt change in tone was more about political survival than true accountability, and people weren't buying it.
He did eventually come out and apologize. If you want to go on Twitter, Rob, and just go to the apology video that he came out eventually. This is, I think, 4-5 days later. On day one, I asked him, I said, are you going to come out and do this? Watch how he's finally wanting to have his people be responsible. Go ahead, Rob.
You incite violence. I want to be clear about this. If you incite violence or destroy our communities, you're going to be held to account.
Okay.
That kind of criminal behavior will not be tolerated. Full stop. Already more than 220 people have been arrested, and we're reviewing tapes to build additional cases, and people will be prosecuted.
If he couldn't even control the chaos breaking out in his own backyard, how can anyone trust a man like this to lead California, let alone the entire United States? Imagine an aggressive foreign adversary at our doorstep. Would he crumble under pressure, issue another apology, and rush to clean up the mess? Strong decision-making skills and the capacity to respond quickly in emergency situations are essential for leadership. Maher notices a pattern of incompetent leadership masquerading as progressivism, and he doesn't believe it. If this is the kind of future the left wishes to export across the nation, California's dysfunction is a warning sign for the whole nation. Even some Democrats believe Maher has little chance of winning any elections on the Democratic ticket, since he doesn't want to be involved. And, to be honest, who can blame him?
BLA yesterday with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, who do you want to run for president? I mentioned, I think you'd be good at the job. Not this year, we know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state. I disagreed, but no, this is a progressive African-American owned station, and I'm sure they like you, but doesn't think you can win.
This is coming from a black voter who has most likely always supported the Democratic Party, and I agree that Gavin Newsom wouldn't win. Not because it's too radical, but rather because it's just too incompetent. To be honest, I'm not sure which ticket would be worse. Although Newsom doesn't give us Kamala Harris's notorious word salads, his mishandling of California's economy, widespread homelessness, increased crime, and tone-deaf leadership don't exactly scream commander-in-chief. America deserves a leader with a backbone, real results, and leadership that goes beyond polished speeches and nice hair. If this is all the Democrats have to offer, they're in big trouble. Meanwhile, a number of people, including Mel Gibson, have voiced their disapproval of the way Newsom is managing the state.
Newsom and Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear they're unable to respond effectively and responsibly during calamity. Whether it's sheer incompetence or outright malevolence, the reality is stark. California's in a state of turmoil, and I ask my fellow Angelenos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office? How much more of their destructive decision-making masquerading as leadership are we going to tolerate?
In all honesty, Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass ought to feel ashamed and think about stepping down because their leadership has been utterly ineffectual and Californians are paying the price under their watch. The state has descended into chaos due to high taxes, rising crime, unaffordable housing, and bureaucratic bottlenecks. Just take a look at Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro, two well-known individuals who left California citing the state's crippling tax burden and economic mismanagement. They are not the only families, business owners, and middle-class employees who are fleeing as the so-called Golden State becomes uninhabitable for the very people who created it. The right thing to do is to move aside and let someone capable assume control if Newsom and Bass are unable to change their ways. Bill O'Reilly is another individual who believes Newsom ought to step down.
Open it up. It doesn't seem to be an organic display of protest. That means that it doesn't have a constituency among regular people. The Los Angeles protesters were fueled by very militant far-left organizations that passed out masks and frozen water bottles and other forms of protection for the protesters. Same thing in New York. This is all organized by the far left, but the people aren't coming out. In fact, on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock in New York, everybody went home. In fact, I guess they were hungry. So this is kind of contrived, and the media hoped it would explode into something more so that Trump would look bad, but that doesn't seem to have been the case.
Now, although O'Reilly didn't name anyone, let's be honest. The first person that springs to mind is Gavin Newsom. When everything first started, he was quick to offer covert support to the protesters, avoiding outright condemnation in favor of vague, politically safe statements that seemed to placate the mob rather than restore order. It wouldn't be out of the question to assume that Gavin, or at least some of his allies, might be indirectly supporting these protests. We've heard reports of protesters receiving face masks and frozen water bottles, which begs the question of who is paying for this and handling the logistics. If it turns out that left-leaning organizations associated with Newsom are involved, it's a dangerous betrayal of public trust. Leaders are meant to calm the storm, not subtly stoke it from behind the curtain. And if that's the case, We deserve answers.
California Governor Newsom wanted these demonstrations to explode so he could use that as a political cudgel against Trump and elevate himself into a left-wing candidate for president in 28. And let me back that up. So when you have the police chief of Los Angeles in a press conference saying, we're outmanned, we can't control the violence, the fires on the cars, the throwing objects at our own police and ICE agents, we can't control it. And you don't have the governor immediately sending the National Guard down to help the LAPD, then you know the governor doesn't care or wants it to explode. And that's what I believe Newsom did.
Although Gavin Newsom hasn't formally announced his plan to run for president in 2028, he hasn't done much to conceal it. From his frequent appearances in national media to the debut of his own podcast, which is presented as a forum for interacting with people from all political backgrounds, it's evident that he is setting the stage for a future campaign. The rebranding, the outreach, the unexpected nonpartisan tone, all of this suggests someone with greater aspirations. The true question, though, is whether he must endanger property and public safety in order to win over progressive base. Promoting policies that are lenient towards crime while the far left may applaud ignoring public disturbance and evading responsibility during emergencies, it puts regular Californians in a difficult situation to end danger if Newsom is prepared to risk lives and livelihoods of political gain. It raises serious concerns about his suitability for higher office. O'Reilly then contrasts New York's response to the protests with Lars, and it is easy to see Gavin's hypocrisy. Presidential candidates are supposed to lead, not pander.
Or they didn't want it to explode, and it's easier to control it here because the city is so claustrophobic, and the cops know how to do this, and they did a good job. So they didn't give the miscreants a lot of room to set anything on fire or things like that, and you didn't need the federal presence.
Indeed, it is a responsibility of a proactive, effective leader, someone who knows the pulse of their city and moves quickly to stop disaster before it starts. It's about being present, resolute, and prepared to make difficult decisions, even if they're politically awkward. Even though she is a Democrat, the governor of New York demonstrated exactly that kind of leadership when unrest threatened to get out of control. She didn't hesitate, deployed resources, enforced order, and made it clear that protecting lives and property wasn't up for debate. Newsom's response was slow, politically calculated, and ineffective when leaders hesitate in moments that demand clarity because the consequences are real businesses. The distinction between a leader who campaigns and one who governs is that the former causes communities to be rattled and public trust to be undermined.
Or the notion we just have to continue to talk to ourselves or we're in the same damn echo chamber. These guys are crushing us. The Democratic brand is toxic right now. We had a high water mark 2 weeks ago, and that was a CNN poll at 29% favorability. It's dropped in the NBC poll down to 27%. It's one thing to make noise, but you also have to make sense.
Surprisingly, Newsom was correct, as evidenced by former White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, who recently announced a departure from the Democratic Party without providing a clear and comprehensive explanation. The party has become so poisonous and consumed by internal contradictions and performance politics that even its own supporters are fleeing. The message is clear. You shouldn't simply leave a party if you provided the best possible service unless, whether it's the widening gaps within the party, the disconnection from regular Americans, or the preference for identity politics over substance, it's clear that she was driven out by the very dysfunction she once defended. The party is collapsing from within, and while Nwomi may still be hanging on, even he can't in today's explosive video, we draw the curtains. If you liked it, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. When insiders begin to walk, that's not just a signal, it's an alarm bell. I appreciate you viewing, and I'll see you in the upcoming episode.